A moose came to a guy's front door, and because he really loves animals, he couldn't say no to helping it. After helping the moose and letting it go back to the forest, he didn't expect to see it again. But a few months later, something really cool happened as a result of his kindness. Erikas Plukas loved nature and had decided to live in the Lithuanian countryside. He rarely had visitors at his cabin in the woods, and he hadn't encountered any wild animals there either. That's why he was really surprised when he found something unexpected at his property's gate. There he saw a baby moose curled up next to a small tree. Erikas was careful because he knew that a baby moose meant its mother was probably nearby. He understood that moose can be very strong and even their horns can hurt or kill people. They might charge at someone they see as a threat, especially during the time when baby moose are born. So he knew he needed to be extra careful and take precautions. When Erikas took a closer look, he saw that the little moose was hurt. It had bleeding wounds, maybe from branches poking it, and its fur was full of flies. This baby moose was probably less than 2 weeks old and still needed its mother, but she was nowhere around. Sadly, it seemed like she might have been killed by hunters in the area. Without its mom, this helpless baby moose would be an easy target for wolves or foxes. Nature can be beautiful, but sometimes it can be really tough. Erikas couldn't just stand there and do nothing. Even though he didn't know how to help the moose, he was determined to try and make things better for it. Without giving it too much thought, he picked up the helpless moose in his arms and carried it into his living room before proceeding to create a soft and comfortable spot in front of the fireplace. He was going to do all he could to save this visitor, as he thought the universe had sent it to him for a reason. Erikas was no wildlife expert, but he immediately realized that, on top of the physical injuries, the little female calf was also severely traumatized. He could see that the ordeal she had gone through had left her exhausted and starved. But what was he supposed to feed her, and how could he help her heal? He desperately needed some sound advice and guidance. That evening, when Erikas phoned his friends one by one to get some advice on how to help a moose calf, he was met by a wall of judgment, resistance, and utter disbelief. Everybody he spoke to told him to return the moose to the wild. If she survived, they would rejoice together. If, however, she died, that would probably be for the best. After all, what kind of life would an injured, orphaned moose have in the woods? After being completely abandoned by his friends, this Lithuanian man still had one last trick up his sleeve. He phoned animal services and demanded to know how he could help this sickly animal. Every moment that passed caused further deterioration to the calf. He knew time was running out, and urgent intervention was needed. Despite the urgency of the situation, animal services had no one available to respond immediately. On that specific day, the organization was overwhelmed by a large number of animals in need, so Erikas would have to follow his gut and look after the injured animal himself. If the moose made it to the next day, someone would swing by to offer some assistance. The next 12 hours became a battle for life and death. Erikas had no idea what to feed the calf, so he tried to entice the starving animal with some milk and leaves. His plan worked though, and she started eating eagerly. This gave him some hope that she might indeed survive the night. With a makeshift shelter, he left his patient in the center of the living room and went upstairs for a well-deserved few hours of sleep. Hopefully, he could surrender the calf to the expertise of animal services early the next morning. When help finally arrived the following day, Erikas breathed a sigh of relief, only to be met with the most unbelievable news. The animal caretaker told him that the center would not be able to take care of the moose and suggested Erikas hand the helpless calf to the hunters in the area. At least her end would be swift. With utter disbelief, he firmly rejected the offer and vowed to never let that happen. This calf was now his personal responsibility. With strict conservation laws in mind, he knew that it was illegal to keep wild animals and raise them like domestic ones. Still, there had to be a plan to resolve this dilemma that didn't involve the death of the poor moose. This troubled calf had carved a place in Erikas's heart in a single night. He would steal, beg, borrow, but somehow he had to get custody of his moose. The battle ahead was not an easy one. Animal services already regarded the young moose as dangerous and insisted that it was illegal to keep a wild animal. But Erikas simply dug his heels in and refused to be moved. Finally, the officers granted him permission to keep the moose. His unyielding stance did not make him any friends on that day, but at least it bought the calf some time on Earth. When adopting a child, whether human or animal, the next logical step is to give it a name. Seeing that this was a baby girl, Erica settled on the name Emma. The responsibility and burden of caring for her would only dawn upon this man much later, but at the time he simply focused on the positive aspects. Unfamiliar paternal instincts surfaced in Erica's, while Emma found it easy to trust her new caretaker and father. The amount of time the two spent together accelerated the fostering of what would become an almost unbreakable bond. The type of sacrifices that Erica's made for his moose baby was almost unthinkable. To help her develop trust, he spent many nights with her in the open, giving up the comfort of his bed to ensure her safety and emotional well-being. All the while, he was painfully aware that Emma belonged in the wild, and one day, maybe even sooner than he expected, she would have to be reintegrated back into the forest. The months that followed became a gradual process of Emma becoming adjusted to the forest. Initially, she could only venture into nature with her father by her side, but as time passed, she realized that this was the home that was intended for her. She even started having authentic forest meals. The day Emma was brave enough to venture into the forest all on her own was bittersweet for Erica's, torn between being proud of her growth and sad to see her leave. The time Emma spent in her new habitat became longer each day, but she would always be home by sunset like an obedient child. Until one evening, she simply did not return. Erica's had a few sleepless nights worrying about her, but he knew that it was time to let her go and trust that he had done all he could. He thought he would never see her again and wish her a long, happy life in her natural habitat. But he was about to receive an amazing surprise. One day, as Erica's was looking out of his window, he noticed a visitor at his gate. Emma had come to say hello. This would be the start of a new chapter in their relationship, where the two of them spent many hours together, swimming in the pond and playing by day. Emma was yet again his companion, and by night she returned to her forest home. Thankfully, Erica's managed to convince the local hunters not to harm Emma. The most incredible surprise came one morning when Erica saw his adopted daughter, Emma, approaching the house. She had grown into a full-grown moose and looked even more well-fed than usual. When Emma turned to her side, Erica's realized something amazing. He was going to be a grandfather. Emma had fully adapted to the wild and was going to be a mother herself. Even though she was now living as a wild moose, she would always have a special friendship with the man who had saved her life many years ago. Do you know of any other stories where wild animals and people became close friends like this? Would you be willing to raise a wild animal that could be risky? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.